In this video, I'll be showing you 4 different ways to hand sew back stitches. This is the front, this is the back of my work, and I will get started with the regular back stitch, which is the most commonly used and known. I have 2 videos showing you how to do this already, so I will not go into detail about this back stitch in this video. I will link my videos below along with the playlist I have on hand sewing, but this one is a regular back stitch, so I will fast forward through it. It is the first full back stitch, so I had to show it in this video. It is used for a strong stitch. Wherever a strong stitch is needed, this is the stitch that is most commonly used. Unlike the running stitch, that is the other popular stitch that is one snag away from a wardrobe malfunction. This stitch will not be going anywhere. You cannot pull it apart by hand. You do need a seam ripper to pull it apart. So that is a strong stitch, one of the 4 strong stitches I'll be showing you. This is the back of my work. Very messy. This is a front. And this is the open seam. You can see I have a lot of tension. For the next stitch, I call this a half back stitch. And this is my starting stitch that I'm doing now. To get started, what I will be doing is a running stitch forward, and then in that space, I will be doing a back stitch. And I will repeat the same thing over and over again until I'm done. I call this a half back stitch because it only looks like a back stitch at the top. Underneath it, it looks like a running stitch. Despite it looking like a running stitch, it cannot be pulled apart. You cannot pull this apart by hand. You need a seam ripper to take this stitch to rip it apart. This is what the front is looking like so far. And this is the back of my work. I would use this stitch mostly for wherever I need a decorative stitch underneath, where I would have ruffles or gathers at the sleeve. Sometimes the edge can show, and so I would use a stitch like that because underneath it is more decorative. So that's why I would use this stitch. Or it can be used for a hemline as well. It is a fun stitch. It is fast. It is the fastest of all the 4 stitches. I will be sharing projects where you get to see how I use these different stitches, so definitely subscribe for more so you can see these projects when I upload them. You can't pull it off. That's the back of my work. And this is the front, what it's looking like. This is the open seam. It is very strong, very sturdy. The next stitch, I call this a double back stitch. This is my starting stitch that I am doing now. To get started with my first stitch, I am going back to that same stitch as if to create a back stitch. And I'm creating a loop before I pull the thread all the way through. And I'm going to wrap my thread around that stitch, that loop. And what this is doing is pulling on that previous stitch. I am trying to mimic what the bobbin thread does to the top thread on a sewing machine by pulling on the top thread. So I am trying to recreate the same thing. At least that's what I'm thinking in my head by pulling on the previous stitch. So you do have to wrap it around. And I go forward and then back to that same hole to create a back stitch in that space. I'm gonna wrap my thread around this loop. It does not matter how you wrap your thread around as long as it is done whether you see it or not, as long as you wrap your thread around, you're fine. And then I'm going forward from that point, put my needle right in front of that point and go forward. And then I'm creating a back stitch now in that space, and every time I create a back stitch, that's when I loop around. As you can see here, you don't see the loop, you don't see the tie, but it is happening as long as you make sure your thread is wrapped around. It is doing what it's supposed to do to make sure that that stitch does not come apart. Trust me, I know. If you do skip that, you will know, you will realize that. And then go forward and then back stitch and create a loop at the end. Wrap it around. And from that point, you start your next stitch. This is what the front is looking like so far. And this is what the back is looking like. So I call it the double back stitch because as you see in the back, the thread is doubled in the stitches. I use this stitch often to attach gathers to my projects, to my garments. Also for my armhole, attaching my sleeves to the armhole. Also the crotch of my pants, I use this stitch for. I feel more confident using it than using the regular back stitch. This stitch is a bit more time consuming than the other ones. As you can see, you don't have to do a loop as long as you wrap your thread around the previous stitch and make sure that's done, then you are safe. This is what the front of my work is looking like. And this is the back. Mine is a bit messy, but when you do yours without a tripod and a camera in front of you, you'll be fine. This is the open seam. And my last stitch, I call this a half double back stitch. I am doing my starting stitch now. And to get started, my first stitch will be a reverse stitch. And I'm doing a running stitch over that reverse stitch. And then I'm doing a back stitch in that space. And I'm just going to repeat the same thing over and over until the line is done. Reverse. And a running stitch over that reverse. And then a back stitch in that space. This is what the front is looking like so far. This is the back so far. And I call it a half double back stitch because as you can see, one of the stitches doubled in thread and the next is just a single strand. And that's the same thing for the top and the bottom. So you just repeat the same sequence all the way till the end. I would use this for the same reason I would use the double back stitch, but I would also use this for a decorative stitch as well. Like on a hemline, I would use this. And it is a fun stitch and goes by pretty fast. Also, the way I hold my fabric makes it easy for me to do the reverse. I did try sewing the way I see most people sew. That did lead to me facing hand cramp and pain, and I did not like that, so I went back to my way of sewing, just the way I've been sewing since I was a kid. Since I was a little girl, I've been sewing this way, so I am sticking to it. I've never had pain or cramp sewing this way. This is the front of my work. And this is the back of my work. It could be more neat. And this is the open seam. And now I will show you the ratings of these stitches, how they compare to each other. If you liked any of these stitches, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and comment below, let me know which one was your favorite, which one will you be trying, if you'll be trying any of them. This is it for this video, and thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye!